Jocelyn Monopolio, and I will be reporting about the custody and control of prisoners. This is from the module 4 of this lesson, and then I will directly proceed to the second topic since I am done reporting about the Bureau of Corrections, which was the first topic of this lesson. So, custody, security, and control of prisoners means that if a prisoner has controls or concerns for their safety, they can be placed in protection, a special area of the prison that is separated from mainstream prisoners. Prisoners can ask to be put on a protection order, or the general manager of the prison may choose to put a prisoner on one based on information received. So, a protection order does not limit the prisoner's access to family visits or programs. The prisoner subject to request must be safeguarded from when the request is received until an assessment of the request is complete. Assessment should be completed within 7 days. So, this means that a prisoner can request for their safety, which they can be placed in a protection or a special area of the prison wherein they are separated from the mainstream prisoners. So this will be enacted upon the request of the prisoners itself. So from this, we can say that a prisoner can have its different place in prison also. So he is separated from the mainstream prisons or the mainstream prisoners, but the services or the prisoners access to their family visits is also not limited. So that's the only difference, is that they are separated from the mainstream prison or from the crowd or from the other prisoners that are in the prison system, but since they are separated from any other rooms. So first is their behavior management. So the behavior management means that every correction facilities have their strict policies on behavior and security. So breaking prison rules can have serious consequences, including loss of privileges. Offenses may lead to additional police charges, court appearances, and added time to the prisoner's sentence. A visiting tribunal that will make decisions and pass judgments without the need to be transferred to court. All misconduct will be added to the prisoner's case plan. So this means that in a behavior management, the behavior of the prisoner will also matter in their performance while in their prison. So if they show bad behaviors while being in prison, so that means that there is a consecutive, or there is a consequences following on that kind of behavior. Say for example, their sentence days will be added inside the prison. So that is an example of how they manage the behaviors of every prisoners in a correctional facility. So next is protection, safety, and security. Protection orders expire usually after either 6 or 12 months and can be reviewed if the perceived aggressor is discharged or moved. Prisoners will be removed from protective custody when the expiry date is reached. So this means that the protective custody is no longer responsible for the protection and safety of the prisoners after 6 or 12 months if the perceived aggressor is discharged or moved. So they are no longer responsible for the safety of the prisoner. So prisoners must reapply for protective custody before this date if they want to continue in protective custody. This application will also be assessed. The protected prisoner or an employee can request for protective custody to be removed if they feel that it is no longer required. This will change the education and work opportunities available. So the prisoners can request for their protective custody, but they will be assessed in applying. So as what I have said, that their protective custody will, or protection orders will expire from 6 to 12 months, so which means that they need to reapply, but their reapplication will also be assessed by the correctional facilities or facilitators, and then They can also remove or request the protective custody to remove their protection orders if they feel that it is no longer required. And then the availability for work and educational purposes will also be very possible for them to reapply. So that's how they manage the protection, safety, and security of every prisoners inside the prison system. So let's proceed to the work and training. So research has shown that education and employment can significantly reduce the risk of reoffending. DCS is committed to helping prisoners gain skills, education, and experiences that will reduce reoffending and in turn make safer communities. Most prisoners are engaged in work. This is very important to ensuring prisoners have meaningful, structured days and learn skills and responsibilities. So work training. So according to research, it says that education and employment can significantly reduce the risk of reoffending since prisoners will be engaged in working out with themselves and of course in educating themselves. So that would lesser or reduce the risk of reoffending or committing crimes again because there is a big possibility that they can reapply or apply very quick for a job inside the community. So for prison employment, a limited number of jobs are available in prison. Different prisons will have different job opportunities. The position may include laundry, kitchens, and cleaning services, but these positions or these employments are also limited. These positions provide the opportunity for prisoners to earn money which can be added to their account. Prisoners are able to mix a doing job with attending education or training programs, which is also very helpful to them because while inside the prison, they are given the opportunity to earn money and would be added to their accounts. So which is also helpful if they will be out from the prison, they have money. Next is the intervention orders. An intervention order is one of the many ways to help protect the public and community. So why? Because it sets out to protect a person from defendant by limiting contact. Each order has its own conditions about what type of contact is allowed. So intervention orders can be requested to protect anybody in the community including victims, prisoners, family, and friends. So this intervention order is not only limited to those prisoners but also can be requested or the victims, friends, and families can also obtain this kind of order or this kind of service from the government. So this is used to protect a person from defendant by limiting contact. So next is the components of a prison security. So as prisons become more crowded and internal problems arise, it is important to keep control and stability inside and outside the prison. Although there are many security measures that can be put into place, it is hard to say whether it is physical design or the prison or the skilled officer that makes the difference between the safety and security. So we cannot say that the prison is very safe. The prisoners are also safe. There are also a lot of matters that will contribute to the safety and security of the prisons, either to the physical design of the building or the facility, or from the facilitators themselves. So they both play a major role in keeping things running smoothly inside and outside the perimeters. The reason for this research is to analyze how each part of security helps maintain cohesiveness and what can be done in those cases where there is chaos. So first is the physical security. So this is the one of the most very important factor in the security of prisoners. So the physical structure of a prison is extremely important. The role is twofold. The first one is to keep society out and to keep inmates in. So this the purpose of every prison, which is to incarcerate criminals or offenders and to keep the society out and of course to ensure their safety and of course to keep the inmates in. Therefore, high walls or fences and detection systems are essential when building a prison. So that is what I have said earlier, that there should be also a very good construction of design of the building or in the facility. Next is the internal security. So although the physical design and inmate categorization are key elements in security, they are not complete without the officer protection services. So this is also one of the contributions in finding the factors of the security of every prisoners. So it is very important to emphasize the physical features of an institution's perimeter by themselves and are useless without staff properly trained to be alert to their responsibilities while operating a post. So very accurate information, since it talks about how important the trained staffs as well in a prison system. So this means that prison facilities or designs of the building is not enough to ensure the security of every prisoners. So next is the care and treatment of prisoners. So the first one is all prisoners shall be treated with the respect due to their inherent dignity and value as human beings. Of course, they are also human beings. They have the right to be given same services as what the government give to the community. There shall be no discrimination on the grounds of race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth or status. So no there shall be no discrimination in any cases or any status of our lives while being in prison. So that is prohibited. It is, however, desirable to respect the religious beliefs and cultural precepts of the group to which the prisoners belong, whenever local conditions so require. The fourth is the responsibility of prisons for the custody of prisoners and for the protection of society against crime shall be discharged in keeping a state's the social objectives and its fundamental responsibilities for promoting the well-being and development of all members of the society. So number 5, except those limitations that are demonstrably necessitated by the fact of incarceration, all prisoners shall retain the human rights and fundamental freedoms set out by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And number 6, all prisoners shall have the right to take part in cultural activities and education aimed at the full development of the human personality. So, as what I have said, there are a lot of programs in the prison system which includes cultural activities. Hence, the prisoners are have the right to take part of such activities inside the prison. Number 7, efforts addressed to the abolition of solitary confinement as a punishment to the restriction of its use should be undertaken and encouraged. And number 8, conditions shall be created enabling prisoners to undertake meaningful remunerated employment which will facilitate their integration into the country's labor market and permit them to continue or to contribute their own financial support and to that of their families. So with the participation and help of the community and social institutions, with due regard to the interests of victims, favorable conditions shall be created for the reintegration of the ex-prisoners into society under the best possible conditions. So this means that the ex-prisoners will be given the chance to reform in order for them in re-entering the community for their best possible conditions. And number 11, the above principle shall be applied impartially. So the prison systems here in the Philippines is applying all of these principles in each prison systems here in the Philippines. Okay, so let's proceed to the release of prisoners. So release dates are determined by sentencing laws, the sentencing judge, and the SA Parole Board. Some prisoners will automatically have standard conditions imposed while others will have additional conditions added to their order. So some prisoners may be eligible for temporary release which is granted on the case by case. So the release of prisoners will matter to the sentencing laws or the um, sentencing dates of issued by the SA Parole Board. So, for applying for parole, the parole board review the prisoner's case and decide whether to or not to grant parole. So, they will also decide upon the specific conditions of the release. So, the parole board will decide whether to give the prisoner or to whether to give the offender or to grant a parole or not. So, the DCS are not responsible for parole of a prisoner's sentence, its conditions, or duration. So, the DCS is not responsible for the parole sentence. The DCS will be responsible for the prisoner's condition or the works assigned, some of the activities, and such as works and trainings, educational programs inside the prison. So they are not responsible for the prisoner's sentence. The DCS role is to manage the prisoners who have been sentenced by the court. So this is what I have said. The DCS will give some of the programs given to the prisoners or to the offenders while being in prison or while serving their sentence. So the parole condition. Offenders sentenced to 1 and 2 years automatically have standard conditions set unless the court states otherwise. The judge may impose special release conditions on a case-by-case basis. The parole board can set specific conditions. Parole condition, offenders sentenced to 1 and 2 years automatically have standards conditions set unless the court states otherwise. The judge may impose special release conditions on a case-by-case basis. So the judge has the right to give the prisoners or to the offenders or to impose special release depending on the case. So the parole board can set specific conditions at a prisoner's release. When a prisoner has been released with conditions, they are classed as an offender rather than a prisoner. So if the what do you call this? If a prisoner's release, or let's just use the word prisoner, or the offender's release has conditions, they are classified as offenders and they are not a prisoner. So because they are released in a very short time, so they are just called offender and not a prisoner. So a community corrections officer will manage the offender to ensure they comply with the conditions of their order. So for the temporary release, this is for the offender. Every prisoner can apply for a leave or absent from prison for compassionate reasons. This could be for a funeral, a family visit, or a home visit. It can be granted when it is recognized that the leave will aid the prisoner's rehabilitation. This is only granted when the prisoner is eligible, and eligibility depends upon many factors. A multidisciplinary team will make the decision and inform the prisoners of the outcome. So the prisoner will undergo different processes in applying for a temporary release, but this temporary release will be issued to the offender or to the prisoner for some reason. Say for example, he or she will attend a funeral or a family visit or a home visit, but this will undergo, or the eligibility of the prisoner will also matter or will also affect, or one of the factors that the multidisciplinary team will look into in deciding for the outcome of the temporary release. So the temporary release is a lot way longer process. So if leave is granted for compassionate reasons such as funeral, the prisoner is likely to be cuffed and accompanied by officers for the duration of the escort. The family will be advised for this condition in advance. So if the prisoner is given the chance for or approved for a temporary release, he or she will be cuffed but accompanied also by officers for the duration of the escort. So the most or one of the acceptable reasons in temporary release is say for example attending a funeral, but that doesn't mean that if his temporary release, he or her temporary release is approved, he or she can go freely by his or herself. It's not the case. He or she will be accompanied by officers. So the prisoner's case manager will be able to provide further information on how to apply. So this is for the application of a temporary release. Prisoners in low security prisons may also eligible to participate in work release programs, conduct job searches towards the end of their sentence, and attend one of the many training programs where the facility runs to help their rehabilitation. So that would be all in the prisoners release of prisoners topic.